Hi everyone. I'm going to talk about the TSA foster homes I was in and the abuse, maltreatment they did to me. And TSA stands for Therapeutic um, Agency, something like that. It just means that the foster homes are therapeutic. Well, they're really not because they're abusive, but they say they are. And usually the most type of kids and teenagers that go there are either court ordered to go there or came out of a juvenile delinquent jail, and the judge feels that they still need to be disciplined and stuff. So basically, being put in a TSA foster home is like being punished. And it's kind of like being locked up because they don't let you do anything. They starve you. You're not allowed to have a cell phone. You can't even have a cell phone that's for calling 911. And after I got out of a juvenile delinquent jail when I was 15, which I didn't deserve to be in there, I didn't do anything wrong, but the juvenile court system screwed me over, and so did my abusive father. But anyways, after I got to leave the lockup, um, the first foster home I was in, it was a TSA foster home, and they isolated me a whole lot. It was like being with my father all over again because my father isolated me severely. I wasn't allowed to have any friends at the foster home. They wouldn't let me have any people come over. They wouldn't even let me be in contact with other family members that I knew wouldn't abuse me and liked me. So I wasn't allowed to have any family, friends, or anybody. And when I asked them why they were doing this to me, they wouldn't give me an answer. And also the first TSA foster home I was in, they starved me. I wasn't allowed to cook my own meals. Wasn't allowed to cook anything. The foster parent was the only person to cook meals for me, and they only would make maybe 1 or 2 meals a day sometimes. So if I was hungry and wanted a meal, I was screwed. And they wouldn't buy enough food for everybody in the house, and they would say that certain foods are only for certain members of the family, and the foster kids aren't allowed to eat it. And they wouldn't buy any food that I liked, even if it was healthy food, like fruit or vegetables or meat or any kind of stuff like that. And they would also be emotionally abusive. They would play mind games with me, and they weren't nice at all. They were pretty mean people. And I'm trying to think what else went on in my first TSA foster home. I hated it there, but I knew in my heart and soul that it was way better than being with my abusive father. And I knew the court jurisdiction, the juvenile court jurisdiction, and the judge was really screwing me over. And they should have put me in a regular foster home where I'd be better taken care of and I wouldn't be supposedly supposed to be punished for basically doing nothing, which is true. I didn't do anything to get punished for anything. And My first TSA foster home, they never physically touched me or physically attacked me or were any physical abuse, but there was a lot of maltreatment. I had really crappy clothes to wear, and they wouldn't let me buy new clothes or enough clothes, and which made me feel depressed, of course. And I had poor grades in school, in public school, and it was because I was being abused and neglected by my TSA foster homes, and of course not getting enough food to eat made it hard for my brain to work right, and I got really bad grades. Like, I would get a lot of F's, I'd get a lot of D's, and maybe once in a while I'd get a B if I was lucky, and it affected how I looked, how my skin looked, the lack of food did, and of course made me feel more depressed, and I felt like I was ugly and stuff because I wasn't getting the right food and enough food to eat, and I was bored all the time, of course, because they isolated me, and the only thing I could do was like sit in my room. Once in a while I'd probably like read a book, or listen to the radio, or do some exercises in my room. And I did think a lot of times about running away, but because of the abuse I got from my father, I was too scared to run away. And I was always scared of getting caught. And I was scared to death of going to a juvenile lockup place again because they're very abusive too. But I'm not going to talk about that right now because this video is about my TSA foster homes. The second foster home, or TSA foster home I went in, it was in my hometown where my father was living, which was not good at all. And they should have known better not to put me in the same town with my father. And I was again they very severely isolated me. I wasn't allowed to have any friends. Wasn't allowed to have a cell phone, not even to call 911 if I needed to. In this foster home was a little worse in certain ways because they wouldn't allow me to have privacy on the phone, and they would have to listen in on your conversations, and then if you said anything that your TSA foster parents were abusing you, they would make really rude comments back at you, and that's what they did to me. And sometimes I will say you is because I'm basically talking about all the other kids that were in the foster home too. And, well, my first TSA foster home, there was just me there at that time. But the second one I was in, when I first came there was 2 other girls and a boy. And then later on, they were all siblings and they left and went back home to their parents. And then it was just me for a while. And then I got 2 more foster sisters. And we both had to go to the case worker at the TSA center place where they do therapy and stuff for the foster kids, the ones that were in the therapeutic foster homes anyways. And of course the caseworker bitched at us for going together and complaining about abuse, and they made us feel like crap for doing it, but I'm glad we did. It definitely made me feel better to speak out about it. And one of my foster sisters also complained to me about the foster dad being emotionally abusive and harassing her. And it was so bad that she was crying all day and couldn't go to work because she was working at a job while she was in the foster home. And what's really fucked up, I wasn't allowed to have a job even though I was 16 already in my second foster home and I was old enough to get a job. And one of their excuses they made is because I was getting poor grades in school. But the only reason I was getting poor grades in school is because I wasn't getting enough food to eat. And my mind wouldn't work. And trying to figure out what else to say. And after a few months, one of my foster sisters got to go back home. And I think she also graduated high school too. And she even had a car at that time when she was at the foster home with me. She had her own car and stuff. And so then after she left, it was just me and the other foster child. And of course, we were all teenagers. There wasn't any, they wouldn't mix the older teenagers with the little kids, like putting a 7-year-old with a 16-year-old in a foster home. They usually matched us up with the same age range. And I was okay with that. I mean, I didn't really feel like being around little bratty kids or anything. I guess I was kind of mean. I shouldn't have said that, but you know what I mean. And not being able to get a job in my second foster home when I was 16 made me very depressed about it. And I was severely depressed all the time. And I was still like in shock from getting away from my abusive father and being abused again by other people and finally getting out of the abusive lockups I was in. So I was traumatized all the time, and I know I'm very mentally disturbed, and I have a lot of emotional pain from what happened to me growing up. Trying to figure out what else to say about my second foster home. Sometimes it's hard doing these videos because you gotta remember every single detail that happened to you throughout your whole life. And for some reason YouTube doesn't let you, when you use the webcam to record your thing, it doesn't let you pause it and record more. So like if I pause too long, don't get mad at me because the thing doesn't let me pause it and then record more after that. So I gotta keep recording even if I pause too long. And well, all the kids that were in the foster home with me in my second TSA home, they all eventually went home with their parents and stuff. And what they told me, they weren't abused by their parents. I felt like I was the only one in the foster homes that came out of an abusive relationship with my biological parents, which made me a little more depressed, and I felt like crap about it because I kind of felt the need to be around other children that were abused too, so they'd know where I'm coming from and understand me and stuff. Well, of course, I probably shouldn't have said understand me because, of course, a lot of people understand stuff like that because when children and teenagers are abused by their parents, they act a certain way. And it's very understandable. And it makes sense. Not trying to say they didn't understand me. Of course, they all understood me. It's just I got abused and treated like crap from them. And I'm not sure how long I can do these videos, but and in my second TSA foster home, my foster parents, especially my foster dad, started getting physically aggressive. I didn't let it get to the point where they physically abused me yet. They were going to, I think, and I was really scared. I think I called the cops on them. I'm not sure, but I know I did call my caseworker and my guardian ad litem and my PO. I think I might have called my PO. I can't remember. And then I explained to them the abuse that was going on in the TSA home, and they believed me, surprisingly, and they got me out of that home. And part of it was because I threatened I was going to do something if they wouldn't take me out of there. So that helped me a lot more too. And sorry if my screen went black. My laptop sometimes goes out on me after like maybe 30 minutes or so, or 15 minutes. Trying to think what else to say. Well, I'll talk about my last TSA foster home I was in, and I turned 17 in that home. So that was the worst TSA foster home I was in. They were the most abusive, especially with the food thing. They starved me even worse than the other ones did. And my grades went even worse. And there was one class in particular, the history class I was in, I would always get F's. I wouldn't even get D's. And that was kind of unusual because in the other foster homes, my grades would go up and down from F's to D's and sometimes B's. But in this case, it wasn't. I completely got straight F's all the time. And I would be lucky if I got a D in one of my classes. In my last foster home, there wasn't any fruit to eat. I didn't get enough fruit. So, and for some reason I think I had, well, I didn't mean to say it that way, but I think I had scurvy, or I might have, from not getting enough fruit. And I didn't get enough meat and protein, so I got really, really pale, and I got pictures in the yearbook to prove how pale I got from being in that last foster home. And that's all my foster mother would buy was high in sodium box food, and she would only buy stuff that she wanted to make for a meal, and I wasn't allowed to touch the food. And I wasn't allowed, of course, in all of my foster homes, I'm not allowed to cook my own meals or make something for myself, and I wasn't allowed to have my own type of food that I like to eat. And so I had to be forced to eat whatever they liked eating, which was abusive, and I wasn't getting the right nutrition. especially because I was still growing. And I think the longest I went without any fruit to eat was probably 6 months. And I even read on the internet, and they said that you go up to 6 months or more without fruit, you can get scurvy. And I think that's what I had. And sometimes I still feel like I have some type of deficiencies because I get pale real easily. Like if I'm not getting enough food to eat, even if I try to eat real good. And trying to think what else to say about my last foster home. I also got isolated in my third foster home. They lived out in the country, so that was way worse, because before I used to live in town. But I was kind of happy that I wasn't in the same town as my father anymore in my last foster home. And they had I had two little foster brothers. Well, they weren't their biological kids, and they were too old to have kids, because my last foster parents, they were like in their 50s. And so I had like 5 and 8-year-old brothers in the house. They weren't my biological brothers, but they were my foster brothers. And it was okay. I liked it. Kids don't bother me. Kids that are younger than me. It was no big deal. And I'm pretty easygoing. I was always calm in my foster homes. I didn't get mad or anything, which I should have, because they were abusing me. And they were also starving my little foster brothers too. They weren't feeding them right. And she would always mention out loud to people saying, "Oh, we skipped a couple meals today." And she would say how she's not feeding her kids. She would always feed them junk food. And maybe once in a while, like once a day or so, they'd get a normal meal. But they weren't getting fruit like I wasn't getting fruit. And of course, to all this abuse that happened to me, I did report it all to the police and child protection workers. So they know about all this stuff that's happened to me. But of course, they're not doing anything about it. And I'm assuming those little foster brothers still live in that home with them, which makes me feel bad. They don't deserve to have any foster kids there. None of those TSA homes do. And I really think the TSA foster homes should be shut down, and there should be no such thing as a TSA home. I know some of you might get confused and think I'm talking about the TSA guards that are at the airports. So if you first start watching my video before I explain what TSA means, I'm pretty sure you probably thought the TSA guards at airports, but it's not. Of course, I already explained that. And trying to think what else to say. Well, I was starving so bad in my last foster home that it got to the point where I was starting to feel panicky and getting anxiety. And and I got mad at my foster mom, and I demanded her to call the caseworker or somebody to get me out of the home. Otherwise, once I walk out that door, I'm never going to come back, and I was threatening to run away. And it actually worked, because she called some people up and the caseworker and explained, but what she said, how she explained it, made me mad, because she said that, oh, I just need to get away for a little while, which was bullshit. She was abusive and I didn't want to ever see her again. And she was very emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, and mentally abusive. I guess saying emotionally abusive is enough to say right there, but you got the idea. And try to think what else to say. I know my video kind of sucks because it's so dark and dim. It is night out right now, and I don't have very good lighting in my bedroom, which is where I'm recording right now. I explained that in one of my other videos. So they quickly moved me to another TSA home in the same town, and I was there for, I think, maybe the weekend or week. Yeah, probably the weekend. And then they wanted me to go somewhere with them, and there was going to be a bunch of old people, and I didn't want to go because I was a teenager and I want to be with other teenagers, of course. So I decided to just stand my ground and stay inside the house and tell them that I wasn't going to go with them. And I told them I was old enough to stay home alone by myself. And I hated the fact that they treated me like a little child and didn't respect me for being a 17-year-old. So they got mad at me, and they called my caseworker and explained to them that I wasn't going with them. And so on that Monday after the weekend, I got brought to the TSA center where they do therapy and stuff and caseworking. My caseworker and social worker was there, and they wouldn't tell me where I was going or what was going to happen to me. And they told me I had to get in the car, which I was very confused at that point. I was scared to death what was going to happen to me, and I knew they were acting like they were playing out to get me games, which they were. And for some reason I was very well behaved, and I did what I was told usually. And I went in the car with my social worker and caseworker anyway, which I shouldn't have. But when I went to court, well, first I went to a temporary low security juvenile delinquent lockup place for about a week or two, and then I had court within 2 weeks. And the social worker lied to my judge, saying that I was having bad behaviors and I disrupted my placement, and that's how she worded it, and that's how the judge worded it. And which wasn't true. They were abusing me, and I wanted to get away as fast as possible, and I wanted my freedom. And of course I wanted to be around people who respected me and knew I was a nice girl and treated me nice. So the judge decided to voluntarily force me into a juvenile delinquent lockup place called Elmar Academy, which I talked about Elmar Academy in my other videos. And I was 17 at the time, and I was gonna turn 18 within a couple months. It was February 21st, I think, when they sent me to Elmore. And of course, I got severely abused in that lockup place called Elmore, and they starved me severely too. And even though the judge said it was voluntary, I didn't have a choice. They were gonna force me physically to go there, and it was either that or go to a different juvenile delinquent lockup place. And I was so confused. I never knew what was going on and why they were hurting me so much and why they screwed me over and why they were doing this to me. It made no sense at all. Sorry for picking my nose or wiping it. And the reason why I usually probably am never gonna cry in my videos when I talk about this stuff is because all the abuse that happened in my life affected me certain ways and really messed me up in the head. And I feel like very emotionally stiff, and I feel like I can't cry a lot of the times when I want to. And I have a lot of psychological damages from what they did to me. Trying to figure out what else to talk about my TSA foster homes. Yeah, and I watch other YouTube videos talking about how they're abused in regular foster homes too. I know that, and I'm not saying that regular foster homes are not abusive, but compared to the TSA foster homes, I'd say they're way better, and you have more freedom and stuff. Especially if you don't have a social worker and aren't under a jurisdiction. Yeah, my social worker abused me. The TSA Therapeutic Agency Center financially abused me. If I didn't go to therapy, or if I didn't do something that they wanted me to do, which I didn't need to, they would take my money away from me, and they'd do abusive stuff to try and get me to do whatever they wanted me to do. And also, like, when I was in the TSA foster homes, when I needed like hygiene supplies and other stuff I needed, they wouldn't buy it, or sometimes they'll buy really crappy generic versions that didn't work for me, and that was very frustrating to deal with. And surprisingly, my period cycles were normal, and I didn't skip my periods, and even though I was being starved, because usually when you get starved, you miss your periods, but for some reason I didn't, and I normally have a heavy flow period. So, and in my last TSA foster home, they put me in a really, really tiny bedroom. That's all I had for a bedroom, was like a really small thing, way smaller than the bedroom I'm in right now. It was like maybe half the size of my bedroom that I have now. And of course, I couldn't exercise in my bedroom in that third foster home. And after a while of being starved so bad at that last home, I stopped exercising, and I was desperate for any type of food that I started asking if I could have fast food, because sometimes I would eat fast food, and I normally didn't like fast food, and I kind of hated it, and I didn't want to get fat, but I gave up on that and just said, heck, it's better than no food at all. So, and then my third TSA foster mom, she was abusive about that emotionally, and she bitched at me for it, saying how I shouldn't eat fast food, but she was also saying that was the only food that at that time I was allowed to eat, because they wanted to eat fast food, so I wanted to too, but she bitched at me for it, which made no sense. And like I said, she was playing mind games with me and psychologically fucking me up. And yes, I swear, and I'm very proud of it, and I like swearing. Gets my point across very clearly. Given the fact that all the bad shit I've been through, there should be swearing in these videos. A lot. I mean, it would make anyone want to swear a lot if they were abused. So, thanks for watching my video. Bye.